The cold, demanding voice tore through the previously peaceful atmosphere of the crowded airplane cabin. "My child needs a window seat. You have to move." The words were sharp, cutting through the hum of engines and the murmur of passengers settling into their seats. A white woman stood in the aisle, her posture rigid, her gaze fixed on a young black girl seated by the window. Her tone was not a request, but a command, delivered with an air of entitlement that left no room for negotiation. The girl, Amara Jackson, looked up from her notebook, her dark eyes meeting the woman's icy stare. At 17, Amara was no stranger to such confrontations. She had spent her life navigating spaces where she was often made to feel like an outsider, where her presence was questioned, her worth doubted. But this time, she was determined not to back down. She had worked too hard, come too far, to let anyone take what was rightfully hers. "I'm sorry," Amara replied, her voice calm but firm. "This is the seat I reserved. I needed to study." The woman blinked, as if surprised by the girl's refusal. Her lips tightened into a thin line, and she leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that was still loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "My daughter is very nervous about flying. She needs to sit by the window to feel safe. Could you please be a little understanding? I'm sure your homework isn't as important as a child's comfort." Amara felt a pang of frustration, but kept her composure. "I understand," she said, her tone steady. "But I also need this seat to study. If the window seat is that important to you, maybe you should ask the flight attendant to help you find someone else to switch with." The woman's eyes narrowed, her gaze flickering over Amara's face, her neatly tied curls, and the notebook in her lap. It was a look Amara had seen before, a calculating, assessing stare that always seemed to precede some form of dismissal or disdain. The woman straightened, her lips curling into a faint sneer. "Unbelievable," she muttered, turning away. "So rude. You're young and already so selfish." The word stung, but Amara clenched her fists and took a deep breath, refusing to let the woman's words shake her. She had learned long ago that people like this thrived on making others feel small, and she wasn't about to give her the satisfaction. The woman, whom Amara would later learn was named Karen Whitfield, wasn't done. She flagged down a passing flight attendant, her voice rising as she explained the issue to the young woman in uniform. "This girl refuses to switch seats with my daughter," Karen said, her tone dripping with indignation. "I explained that my daughter gets anxious while flying and needs to sit by the window, but she still refused to move. I really don't understand how a student could be so lacking in compassion." The flight attendant, a young woman named Michaela, listened patiently before turning to Amara. "Miss, is there a problem with your seat?" Amara shook her head. "No, ma'am. I reserved the seat in advance, and I needed to study. I've already explained that to her." Michaela nodded, her expression professional but kind. "I understand. According to our policy, passengers are entitled to the seats they've reserved. If you'd like, ma'am," she said, turning to Karen, "I can help you find another passenger willing to switch seats." Karen's face flushed with anger, but she forced a tight smile. The flight from Philadelphia to Chicago was just the beginning of a journey that would test Amara in ways she had never imagined. She was on her way to compete in a national academic competition, a prestigious event that would bring together some of the brightest young minds in the country. For Amara, this wasn't just another competition. It was a chance to prove herself, to show the world that she belonged among the best. Winning the competition would mean more than just a trophy or bragging rights. It would open doors to opportunities she had only dreamed of, including a coveted scholarship to Harvard University. For a girl from a working-class family, where every dollar was stretched thin and every opportunity hard-won, this was a golden ticket to a future she had always believed was out of reach. As the plane descended into Chicago, Amara felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She had spent months preparing for this moment, poring over textbooks, practicing problem sets, and honing her debating skills. But no amount of preparation could fully prepare her for what lay ahead. The competition was held in a grand convention center, its towering glass walls reflecting the city skyline. Inside, the atmosphere was electric, filled with a buzz of nervous energy and the clatter of footsteps on polished floors. Contestants from across the country milled about, their faces a mix of determination and apprehension. Amara spotted a group of students huddled together, their laughter a stark contrast to the tension in the air. She recognized a few faces from previous competitions, but most were strangers, their names and stories unknown to her. She found her assigned seat in the exam hall and set her backpack down, pulling out her notebook and a stack of study materials. The first round of the competition was a written test, a grueling 3-hour exam that would test their knowledge of mathematics, science, history, and critical thinking. Amara had spent countless hours preparing for this moment, but as she looked around the room, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in her chest. The feeling only intensified when she spotted Karen Whitfield standing at the front of the room, her arms crossed and her gaze sweeping over the contestants. Amara's heart skipped a beat. What was she doing here? She watched as Karen exchanged a few words with one of the judges, her expression serious and focused. It wasn't until Karen turned and their eyes met that Amara realized the truth. Karen wasn't just a fellow passenger on the plane. She was one of the competition's judges. Amara's stomach churned as the implications sank in. Karen had already shown her disdain for Amara on the plane, and now she held the power to influence the outcome of the competition. Would she use her position to undermine Amara's chances? The thought sent a chill down her spine, but she quickly pushed it aside. She hadn't come this far to let someone like Karen Whitfield stand in her way. The exam began, and Amara focused all her energy on the task at hand. The questions were challenging, but she had prepared well, and her confidence grew with each problem she solved. She was halfway through the test when she felt a pair of eyes on her. She glanced up and saw Karen watching her from the judge's table, her expression unreadable. Amara quickly looked away, her heart pounding. She couldn't let Karen's presence distract her. She had worked too hard to let anyone take this away from her. When the exam ended, Amara felt a sense of relief mixed with exhaustion. She had done her best, and now all she could do was wait for the results. The top 10 contestants would advance to the next round, a live debate that would test their critical thinking and public speaking skills. Amara knew that if she made it to the next round, she would have to face Karen again, and this time, the stakes would be even higher. The results were announced later that evening, and Amara's heart leapt when she saw her name on the list of finalists. She had placed second, a remarkable achievement that filled her with pride. But her joy was tempered by the knowledge that the next round would be even more challenging, and that Karen Whitfield would be watching her every move. The debate was held in a large auditorium, its stage bathed in bright lights that made the contestants squint as they took their seats. Amara felt a knot of nerves in her stomach as she waited for her turn to speak. She had spent the night preparing, rehearsing her arguments and anticipating potential counterarguments. But no amount of preparation could fully prepare her for what was to come. When it was her turn, Amara stepped up to the podium, her heart pounding in her chest. The topic was education reform, a subject she was passionate about. She began her argument with confidence, her voice steady and clear. But halfway through, Karen interrupted her. "Miss Jackson," Karen said, her tone sharp and cutting, "if you had the power to decide national education policy, what would you do to improve the system without affecting students who are currently performing well by today's standards?" The question was a trap, designed to put Amara in a difficult position. If she emphasized change, Karen could accuse her of disrupting the existing system. If she defended the status quo, Karen could attack her for not having a real solution to the injustices in education. But Amara wasn't about to fall into the trap. "Thank you for the question," she replied, her voice calm and measured. "But I think there's a mistaken assumption in how it was phrased. We shouldn't think of education as a zero-sum game, where if one group of students benefits, another must suffer. Education can be improved in ways that allow all students to thrive, not by taking opportunities from one group to elevate another, but by expanding resources to ensure every student has access to quality education." The room fell silent as Amara finished her response. She could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on her, but she held her head high, refusing to back down. Karen's expression was unreadable, but Amara could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hand gripped the edge of the table. She had tried to trap Amara, but Amara had turned the tables on her. When the debate ended, Amara felt a sense of relief, mixed with exhaustion. She had done her best, and now all she could do was wait for the final results. As she left the stage, she spotted Marcus, a fellow contestant who had become an unexpected ally. He gave her a thumbs up, his smile warm and encouraging. "You did great," he said. Karen didn't know what hit her. Amara smiled, but her mind was already racing ahead to what came next. The competition was far from over, and she knew that the battle with Karen Whitfield was just beginning. The final results were announced the next day, and Amara's heart leapt when she heard her name called as the winner. She had done it. She had beaten the odds, faced down her fears, and emerged victorious. As she stepped onto the stage to accept her trophy, she felt a surge of pride and determination. This wasn't just a victory for her. It was a victory for everyone who had ever been underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed. But as she looked out at the audience, her eyes met Karen's. The woman's expression was unreadable, but Amara could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands clenched at her sides. Karen had lost, and she didn't like it. But Amara knew that this wasn't the end. The battle for respect and dignity was far from over, and she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As she left the stage, Amara felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had proven herself, not just to Karen Whitfield, but to the world, and she knew that no matter what obstacles she faced in the future, she would face them with the same courage and determination that had brought her this far. In the weeks that followed, Amara's life changed in ways she had never imagined. She received invitations to prestigious universities, including Harvard, where she was offered a place in the Future Leaders program. She also reconnected with Marcus, who had become a close friend and ally. Together, they began to plan a movement to promote educational equity and social justice, a vision that would take them far beyond the confines of the competition. But even as she looked to the future, Amara never forgot the lessons she had learned from her confrontation with Karen Whitfield. She knew that the fight for justice and equality was far from over, and that there would always be people like Karen who sought to maintain the status quo. But she also knew that she was not alone, that there were others who shared her vision and were willing to stand with her in the fight for a better world. As she sat in her dorm room at Harvard, surrounded by books and notes, Amara felt a sense of purpose and determination. She had come a long way from the girl on the plane, but she knew that her journey was just beginning, and she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the knowledge that she had the strength, the courage, and the support to make a difference.